In this tutorial, I'm going to explain the materials. I before explained the basic materials or the general materials. Now I'm going to explain. So you'll need, from left to right, you'll need a piece of tape to tape down the photocopy to the surface so that it doesn't move. Obviously, you have the blender markers from Chart Pack. You have the burnishing tool. Uh, One thing that I did want to point out, if you don't have a burnishing tool or anything that can rub the transfer, the back of these clear handled watercolor brushes are flat and they can be used as a burnisher. So they're two tools in one. Obviously, a nice photocopy or a photo reference of the object that you're going to draw, then some toner photocopies, and then multiple surfaces to transfer onto. I'm going to demonstrate all the different usages of this photocopy transfer. Also, you'll notice that I have a basic line drawing photocopy, a photocopy with a little bit more toner or a little bit more value or modeling on it. And then I have a example of a full value photocopy of a drawing that will transfer as well. The fun thing about the transfer, anything that you duplicate with toner in the photocopy, you can transfer. So you can even transfer photos as long as you get that photo converted into a toner photocopy. All right, so I will demonstrate some of those things. And then obviously some paint brushes. And then I haven't put any paint out because obviously you can use any of the wet mediums to paint on the photocopy transfer once it's transferred on. So that is the materials that you'll need. All right, so I'm going to show you, I'm going to scoot some of these things over, the process that I did for the getting the photocopy transfer ready to roll. So obviously here is the photo reference. I'm going to use the same reference that I used for the oil painting rendering assignment, just to be simplified and streamlined. And then I took that photo reference and I did a line drawing just to keep things simple. Now the reason why there are notes or writing on this sketch is I wanted to make sure you understand that you have to flip or invert or reverse your drawing. So obviously you can read some of those notes on there for the writing. And then I scanned or digitized that drawing. Then I took it into Photoshop and then I flipped the image. So if you notice this image now, you won't be able to read that writing unless you can read backwards. So that is a flipped image or a flipped drawing in Photoshop. Then I printed it, and then I took it to I found a toner photocopy machine and made a toner photocopy. And again, that was probably either 2 to 5 cent copy of each one of these toner photocopies. So the cheapest copy that you can make is usually a toner photocopy machine. Okay, and then here are obviously some other examples of some varieties of toner photocopies. Obviously, the best surface to transfer onto is a medium toothed surface to paint on. This is cold press illustration board, 9x12, cut to 9x12, and then obviously the image area or the format is 7x10. Then I have a variety of cardboard that you can transfer onto. And then I'm going to demonstrate, this is a brand new sketchbook that I'm going to transfer images into and onto. A lot of times I'll do sketches or drawings on loose paper or whatever surface I can find, and then I want to compile that into a sketchbook, and that's a good characteristic of this photocopy transfer is I can take those line drawings or sketches or whatever and transfer them into a sketchbook and have them all compiled together. All right, so I will now demonstrate the main purpose of this photocopy transfer, and that is to transfer this line drawing onto my illustration board, cold press illustration board. Okay, so you'll want to flip that over, get it lined up to wherever you feel the transfer will be the best onto your surface. I will then take some tape. Now the main reason I'm going to tape this photocopy down is because you don't want it moving around while you're doing a transfer, or your drawing will get unregistered and it will move all over the place, and that's not what you want. So I'm going to tape my photocopy down. It's down. Obviously the toner side is toward the surface that I want to transfer. Obviously if you don't want it to transfer, you keep it toner side up, away from the surface that you're going to transfer, and it won't transfer. It'll just, the blender marker will just mix with the toner and it'll just make a mess. So, all right. So usually you want your line drawing and or your photocopy to be nice and dark so it does a nice transfer, and you will be able to see those lines on your surface. If it's light or very faint or subtle, that's exactly what will transfer onto the surface, and it'll be hard to see. All right, so I will take my blender marker and I'll have my burnisher close at hand. Usually I will transfer in sections because this acetone or the ingredient in the blender marker evaporates pretty quickly. So if I do the whole image or the whole photocopy at one time, the top part of the transfer might evaporate and you won't be able to transfer as effectively. So I usually break it up into the more complex image. I break it up into 4 or 5 sections and transfer each section at a time, and or I will do a less complex or a smaller drawing in one sitting. So you take the lid off, and once you add that blender marker or the acetone, it goes very transparent. You'll be able to see the drawing very easily, and you'll be able to see where you're transferring. So that's about half because of the scale of this image. I'm going to do about half of this transfer. So I will put the lid on. Make sure you put the lid on, or the acetone will just evaporate out of the marker, and you don't want that. The downside of this technique is the chart pack blender markers are expensive and they don't last very long. The acetone inside only lasts for, kind of depends on the complexity of your images, but usually I will get 3 or 4 really good transfers out of a blender marker. Now, if you do a little bit of research on acetone, acetone is one of the most common ingredients in fingernail polish remover, and you can, if your chart pack blender marker runs out of the acetone that was originally in the marker, you can get a big container of fingernail polish remover, and you can dip that marker down into the fingernail polish remover. the tip of the marker kind of sucks up some of that acetone that's in the fingernail polish remover, and you can use that to apply the acetone or the fingernail polish remover to a drawing. It doesn't work as well because it's not as potent as of acetone as what is in the blender marker originally, but it does work, so you can play around with that. Okay, now I've done half of the transfer, so now I'm going to continue on and get the rest of the drawing or the photocopy transferred onto my surface. You don't have to press very hard. When you press hard is if you want it to be a really nice dark transfer, that's when you would press hard with the burnisher after you've added the acetone or used the blender marker. So if you can tell, I'm just about finished with this line drawing portion of the transfer. You'll be able to tell where you've applied the acetone and where you haven't. So once you're, again, I'll restate that. Once you add the acetone, you don't have to press really hard. If you want a nice dark transfer, this is when you press hard on the burnishing of the photocopy. Obviously, if you don't press hard, you're not going to get a very dark transfer. You can miss areas and it will become streaky, like parts of the photocopy or the toner will transfer and parts of it won't. That can be a fun little technique as well, and you can get a really broken up sketch if you want. Okay. Now, the acetone obviously is a little bit toxic, and you'll want to do this transfer or using that acetone in a well-ventilated area. All right, so that's the completion of this drawing or photocopy transfer. Do you think it worked? Let's take a look-see. So if you lift up the photocopy, and if it didn't work, then usually that means it was either an inkjet photocopy or printout or a laser print. If it was a toner print, then that's what you will get. All right? So, does it look exactly like the photocopy? Pretty close. There's some really cool technique or a little bit of a distressed look to the sketch now. It's kind of a fun little aesthetic that is kind of characteristic of the photocopy transfer. But one thing you'll notice is now you can read the writing and everything is back to where your original drawing was before you flipped it in the computer, and now it's ready to be painted on. All right, so it's down, it's dry. It takes about 10 or 20 seconds for the photocopy toner to dry. But again, that won't smear, it won't, it's very durable, it won't fade on you. That is a really cool little surface to paint on now. Now, if you want to leave the line work and just do thin transparent washes of color on top of it, that's fine. You'll maintain the aesthetic of that photocopy transfer. Or if you want to do a full opaque painting, obviously you can cover the line work. And that's why, if you notice, I have several different photocopies. If I start to paint, this is the original drawing or the original copy of that drawing. I can then, if I can't do any more transfers, if it's thick opaque paint, then I can put this drawing on there, register it up, and then use regular transfer paper to do transfers of information onto that painting that is opaque. So that's the demonstration, and I will come back to this a little bit later and do a painting on this.